Hello, everybody. I'm the Amazing Atheist. Welcome to the third part of my answers sessions. This time I'll be talking about I'll be answering questions from users on YouTube. The first question comes from a fellow by the name of J.I. Vargas. It says, "Hey TJ, hopefully don't get this question a lot, but what makes you an independent progressive or a centrist liberal or whatever label they're using nowadays? Most of your political views could be considered far left. Do you differ from far left or socialists on economics or what? Just curious. Excuse my horrible spelling and grammar." Your horrible spelling and grammar are excused. Yeah, they're excused because they're a poor excuse. You piece of shit. Get some better spelling and grammar. And anyway, why do I consider myself center left rather than far left? I think it's because I find myself agreeing with libertarians on a lot of individual rights issues. I think that a lot of progressives, they feel like we should take... I mean, I really believe that when it comes to people, we're all in the same boat because, you know, we have a society, it has to be cohesive. I think that there are certain things that we have to make sure are taken care of, like roads, infrastructure, a court system, laws, and you know, also I think things like healthcare and, you know, a social safety net. That's my opinion as someone who considers himself progressive, liberal, whatever you want to fucking say. But a lot of times when it comes to, you know, like, I don't think a guy should need a permit to put a fucking tool shed in his backyard or something like that. I think that an individual business owner should have the right to do whatever he wants with his own business. I don't believe in things like smoking bans. Like, I don't think it should be up to the law to determine where people can smoke. I think it should be up to whoever owns the property you have to be standing on. You know, if you want to allow smoking in your restaurant, I think you should be able to allow smoking in your restaurant. I don't think there should be a law that comes along that says no smoking in your restaurant. Now, some people say, oh, well, but what about secondhand smoke? It's like, well, if you don't want to fucking have secondhand smoke, then don't go to a restaurant where people are still allowed to smoke. You know, and, well, that's inconvenient for us. Well, too fucking bad, you fucking crybabies. That's what the business owner wants. If the business owner wants a smoking establishment, that's what he should fucking have. It's just stuff like that I find myself disagreeing with a lot of liberals. And I mean, I find that a lot of liberals actually do agree with me on this stuff, too. But it's definitely the kind of stuff that libertarians are more well known for. So I think that I side with libertarians on a lot of individual rights issues because I think that individual liberty is very important. Even if I don't think that it should necessarily always be the paramount consideration. But it's definitely a very important consideration. Saxon Cola 23 asks, when you're shooting a video, are you reading off a script or you just memorize what you want to say? Well, usually I do write a script, but I don't read the script on camera. What I do is I write a script and then I reference it. Really, the script writing process is really about more organizing my own thoughts so that I can, you know, I pretty much remember what I'm going to say, but if I forget, I can look down at, you know, what I've written and say, oh yeah, this is how this is supposed to go. This is the order, this is the sequence, here's all the facts. And obviously, if I'm doing a video that's a little bit more difficult for me, like something that maybe doesn't come as naturally, something I had to do a lot more research on, then you might see me looking at the script more often. You know, you'll see me doing that gaze downwards every now and then to read that script, or just to you know, make reference, you know, to as a reference guide, basically. There have been very few videos where I've directly read from a script. Maybe only, you know, something like 10 in my entire YouTube career where I've actually just read a script. Now, when it comes to doing videos like video essays and stuff like that, that's all scripted completely. But when I'm standing in front of the camera or sitting in front of the camera or whatever, and I'm talking directly into the camera, that is mostly off the cuff. And a lot of times, even when I have something scripted, new things will occur to me as I'm talking to the camera, and I'll go off on these weird little tangents that were never planned for. And sometimes those are like the best things. Those are the things in the video that people talk about afterwards. So I think that it's good to have a structure, but it's good not to be too rigid with your structure when you're doing these videos. At least that's the process that works best for me. Riot Turtle Shield asks, TJ, have you ever noticed outside your circle everyone hates you? When I search the Amazing Atheist on Google, the auto search feature suggests words like idiot, stupid, douchebag, degenerate, etc. to describe the kind of person you are. Do you feel misunderstood or do you relish the hatred? Well, look, anybody with a strong opinion is going to get hated on. That's just a fact of life. And, you know, all of the heroes that I had growing up were people like Marilyn Manson and George Carlin and people like that who had very strong opinions, who weren't afraid to be controversial, weren't afraid to be disliked, weren't afraid to go out there and just, you know, say whatever was on their mind and, you know, fuck everybody else. What does it really matter what the rest of the world thinks? Some people, you know, will agree with the things I say. Some people won't. You know, some people will say that because they don't agree with me, that I'm a piece of shit, that I'm a degenerate, that I'm an asshole, that I'm this and that and every other thing in the universe. But at the end of the day, I'm just a performer, and I'm a human being. And, you know, not everything I do as a performer reflects who I am as a person, and not everything I do as a person reflects who I am as a performer. And I think that there's a lot of hatred towards me that's perhaps misguided because people don't understand what I'm really saying on certain issues. People don't really want to delve in deep to what I'm talking about. It's easier to just have this very superficial reading where, you know, you take a quote out of context, you plaster it up somewhere and say, look at what this asshole said. And then you totally remove it from any sort of explanation. You totally remove it from any sort of framework where it would actually make sense. And this is something that's been happening not just to me, but to you know, it happens to real celebrities, it happens to politicians, it happens to anyone who's in the public spotlight, because that's just the nature of being in the public spotlight, is you're going to be scrutinized, and some people are going to find you wanting. But I don't let it get to me. I'm not really, it's not that I don't care what people have to say, it's just that I realize that everyone just has their own opinion, and, you know, there's plenty of people I fucking loathe and detest out there in the world who I don't really know, who I probably wouldn't have as much of a problem with if I knew them as people. But, you know, I mean, I'm not willing to look past that and to be, I mean, like, I hate Nickelback, and if I because I hate Nickelback, I hate Chad Kroeger. Maybe if I met Chad Kroeger, I'd think he was cool. I'd think he was a nice guy. Maybe if me and Chad hung out sometime, I'd be like, you know what, Chad Kroeger ain't half bad. But that has never happened. So, it's not like I'm going to fucking change my opinion just because my opinion could conceivably be changed. So I understand the mentality of the people who hate on me, because I'm a hater for other people. And it's no big deal. You know, it's healthy. Jordan Justice asked, Dear TJ, you told me you went through a right-wing phase. I was wondering if you could share this story and tell me what type of right-winger you were. I have a lot of conservative views, but still agree with a lot of what you say. What conservative views do you still hold? And is there any common ground you can find with less liberal-minded people? I would say that when it comes to, when I was right-wing, it was basically, I was a libertarian in the vein of, say, like Penn Jillette, or maybe, I don't want to say Ron Paul, but there was like a time in my life when like Ron Paul was someone I was considering voting for. Like, man, Ron Paul says a lot of interesting stuff. Or like a Barry Goldwater type of conservative, before it became the religious right necessarily and was more about individual liberties and stuff. And it's the individual liberty stuff that I still find common ground with a lot of conservatives on, even though there's certain times when I think individual liberty needs to be sacrificed for the greater good. But I think that there's plenty of situations where individual liberty does not need to be sacrificed for the greater good, or when you know, the idea that, oh, you know, like the smoking thing I referenced earlier. Like, you know, you could say, well, it'd be better if people didn't smoke. Yeah, but you know what? It's also better if they can make that decision for themselves. And I think that that's where I still have a conservative set of values to some extent. Ezra Cole asks, Hey TJ, I remember you once held the opinion don't regress to get along. In one of your most recent videos, you seem to be in the process of moving away from such an ideology. Do you disagree with your older opinion? And if so, what caused the change? Thanks for your time. I don't think you have to regress to get along, but I think that you should work to help the other person progress to get along with you, and you should also be open to the idea that maybe you're wrong. You know, you should get along with other people, or try to, you know, when it's possible. Now, obviously, it's not always possible. Some people really are just stupid, obstinate jerks who believe crazy things and have insane opinions that are a detriment to all of us. And I don't want to take away the rights of those people, but I do want to give them the proper reception, which is utter mockery and contempt. like these Republicans who talk about how, who talk about try to talk about what's really rape. If it's really rape, the woman's body will shut down, so she can't possibly get pregnant from real rape. Basically just saying to every girl who's ever been raped and gotten pregnant from rape that, you're lying. You really wanted it, because if it had been real rape, your body would have simply shut it down. Like that kind of contemptible shit. Or people who deny the Holocaust, or people who say that 9/11 was a conspiracy and it was all controlled demolitions by the government. Anyone who has these kind of crazy fringe opinions, and sometimes these opinions can be more widespread than you'd think. Anyone who has those sorts of opinions, I think it's safe to marginalize them and just be like, okay, you're an idiot. I mean, like, maybe with the 9/11 conspiracy thing, like, you give them some credence. You're like, well, let's see if there's anything to this. And then you do the investigation. You're like, no, there's nothing to this. This is just preposterous nonsense. These are people who are just, they're looking for this evidence to be there. And whenever it's not, their reaction is like, la, 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 la. And then they say that that's what other people do. But, when they're confronted with, things like the Popular Mechanics refutation, they're just like, well, Popular Mechanics is obviously in league with the government. But there's no substantial refutations. And you can see that. I mean, if you watch the Popular Mechanics versus the guys who made Loose Change, the video's available on YouTube. And the guys who made Loose Change just get trounced. Just demolished. Demolished every bit as surely as the towers were demolished. Shadow Siren 88 says, I am undertaking a social project that involves self-image and confidence, the men's side. I would love feedback. Simple starters. 1, do you feel comfortable in your skin / confident? What bothers you? I'm glad to see someone going after male body image issues, because for a long time it's like females have body image issues, whereas men are just ugly. And I think that it's good to see that that's kind of reversing. I have issues. Do I feel comfortable in my own skin? Sometimes, look, I look at my hairline, I'm like, oh my God, my hairline is so high. And it's always been pretty high. But, obviously it's receded a little bit over the years. And then the fact that I'm, so hairy bothers me sometimes. The fact that I'm not as well endowed as, some people say I should be. It's just, so there's definitely issues there. Do you feel obligated to diet / build up to be attractive? I do feel that obligation, I guess, to an extent. I've gone on numerous diets. I've lost a lot of weight. But at the end of the day, I mean, I do feel the need to do that. What qualities do you believe physically make men attractive to women / men? When I really look at it, there's really nothing that's across the board. But I mean, obviously there are certain characteristics. Like if you're physically fit, it's pretty obvious that more people are into people who are physically fit than people who are not physically fit. Now, I am not physically fit, but I've still found plenty of people that have been attracted to me. And that's a good thing, because it makes me happy when other people are attracted to me. And, instead of just focusing on all the people who aren't, I just focus on the people who are. Number 4, other comments / statements or welcome stories too. I don't have anything. I just want to say that I really appreciate what you're doing, because this is important. I think that, this is a major self-esteem issue for a lot of men, and it's kind of something that you're kind of encouraged not to talk about. But I think it does need to be talked about, and I think that it would be pretty helpful for a lot of people if it became part of, our national discourse. May Cook asks, I apologize if you've already answered this one in your other videos, but do you and Holly ever plan to have kids? Why or why not? Thanks. Holly and I do not plan to have children. The main reasons are that neither of us really, okay, kids are, Holly thinks kids are okay in small doses, but I don't really like kids, and she doesn't like kids in large doses, and really they fuck up your life. Neither of us really wants to deal with the responsibility of having children. Now, that said, there could come a point one day when we're both a little older and we both feel like, maybe we've done all the stuff we are really going to do that, kids will be a detriment to, and we'll just have some kids. But I don't think so. I think that we both kind of value having the freedom that we have, and we both know people who have kids and see how much kids really do destroy your freedom. And, I guess some people would say that we're selfish, that we don't want to contribute to society by propagating the next generation. But you know what? There's 300 and fucking some change million people in America. I think that we have plenty of humans at this point. I don't feel like I need to contribute new humans to start the process anew. And frankly, I don't really think I'd be that good of a father. And it's not because it's just because I'm not very attentive. I'm always, like Holly's always asking me to do shit around the house. I fucking suck at that kind of thing. It's just not my nature to be the attentive, doting kind of type. I have a pug. That's about as close to having a child as I want to be. Hoppy Hop 1 asks, why is it that they don't like government restrictions but want government benefits? I don't know who they is. Are they unaware that if you want one, you will get the other, or without one, you won't get the other? I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, I think that it's perfectly possible for the government to give you benefits without infringing on your rights. I mean, maybe there's certain things, like, obviously, when you build a road, you're going to have to create traffic laws. Just like, I mean, you can't play a game of chess if there's no rules. You can't play a game of football if there's no rules. You can't do anything that's structured and organized if there's no rules. So I think that, yeah, I mean, maybe to an extent society, rules are a necessary part of society, but I think that we could definitely minimize rules, make them easier, make the rules more inclusive to all people, not just to, a certain type of person. And I think we could have a tremendous amount of benefit from government, from society, from the structures that we create, while having very little in the way of restriction. I think that is very possible and feasible, and I don't see why anyone would think that it wasn't. Tobias Braun asks, I wonder what's going to happen when you find out that God exists. It would destroy your whole world, building up your whole fundament from scratch, but you would survive it surely. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but there is no God. Really, there isn't. I promise you there's no God. Just read about the universe. Not even from like an atheist perspective. Don't go buy the God Delusion and all those atheist books to convince you there's no God. Instead, just read a straight up book about the Big Bang or about evolution that doesn't even address the God issue. Because if you do that, I think you're going to come to the same conclusion. I think you're going to be sitting there looking at this. The more you read, the more you watch, the more you learn, the more you kind of just start scratching your head and saying, like, does this God thing really even make fucking sense? And I assure you it doesn't. Legion X says, TJ, you once said you wouldn't care if the white race went extinct. You said, fuck the white race. Do you only have these feelings towards the white race, or would you equally not care if the black, Asian, or other races were about to go extinct and say, fuck those races as well? Well, let's go back and clarify something. When I said I didn't give a fuck if the white race went extinct, I was saying I didn't care if the white race goes extinct because of inter relationships with other races. Like if we were just if the white race was quote unquote watered down by having sex with other races on this planet, I wouldn't give a shit if we all just fucked until we were one color. Then maybe we would solve some of the problems. Like, it wouldn't bother me. It wouldn't bother me if there was no black race and Asian race and white race and all that stuff, and we were all just one fucking people. I wouldn't care. I also don't care if we fucking maintain all of these different races. It really doesn't matter to me. What we really need to get rid of is not any one race. We need to get rid of racism. We need to get, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. We're all the human race. There's no significant difference between, me as a Caucasian and someone else as an African and someone else as someone who's from Asia. There's really, we can all interbreed and produce offspring that are perfectly healthy and viable. What does that tell you? It tells you that our differences are meager. Our differences are minor. Our differences are not important. What's important is our commonality, the commonality of our humanity, and the commonality of we all share this planet, and we all share one destiny as a species. We need to get on that page. I'm the Amazing Atheist. Peace the fuck out.